We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Book Club Bros podcast. And we are on part 2 of How to Win at Sport of Business by Mark Cuban. Nice little short read. Very nice. A nice fresh of breath air when it comes to switching from Elon Musk to this. And yeah, so guys, overall, we read from page 25 to page 53. So nice little short one. So
Well,
it's
I'm
going to be a quick
sorry.
podcast.
Who are you again?
Sorry?
Who are you again?
Oh, yeah. I was right about to say it right there.
Ah.
I promise.
You came in.
My name is Chase. I'm here with my co-host. What's your name?
This is not my job.
Landon and Miguel. And we are back for some nice little banter book club, bros. All right.
Energy's on point today, though.
There you go.
You're killing it.
I'm hyped.
Yeah.
I'm hyped. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to dive into this little itty bitty tiny section from page 25 up to 53, or page 53 is what we read. And overall thoughts, guys.
Good, bro. Another group of snippets of just good business tips.
Yeah, I got like a solid like 3 or 4 highlights. You know, and I wasn't trying to go crazy with it. I wasn't trying to do anything too much, trying to overcompensate for the lack of amount of pages. So I got some good stuff. I was happy about it. Starting off the first chapter of it, The Sport of Business. Funny enough, that's the book title. I had something, I liked how it said, in sports, this is on page 26. In sports, you know who your opponents are. When you're playing a game, you know pretty much how long the game will last. It's mentally and physically exhausting if you're up at the top of your game, but it still pales in comparison to effort required to be successful in business. The sport of business isn't divided into games. It's not defined by practices. It doesn't have a set of rules that everyone plays by. The sport of business is the ultimate competition. It's 7 times 24 times 365 times forever.
Good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that. I had that highlighted too.
But you guys have any highlights? That was it for my chapter.
Yeah. I like that part about where he's talking about the edge. He just lists off all these things that you can have in order to gain an edge or get yourself to think about what you need to do to be ahead, gain that edge.
Yeah, and he says all these successful people have these different, like, he starts to give you a bunch of examples of what it looks like to have an edge or what it may look like in these certain fields. One of them I liked was the edge is knowing you can fail and learn from it and just get back up and in the game. But I also had a little further down, he says the edge is knowing that you are getting to your goals and treating people right along the way, because as good as you can be, you are so focused that you need regular people around you to balance and help you. And I said, this is kind of anti-Elon. For that, like, because and that's kind of why I wanted to do this book, because outwardly, like, you can just tell they're Elon and Mark Cuban are 2 of the richest people in the world that have 2 of the most dissimilar personalities. Like, Mark Cuban's super outgoing, wants to be in the limelight, he did it a different way. He wasn't a kid genius from whenever he was 4, like, but they still accumulated all this money. And you can just kind of see the ripple effects. I mean, we don't really learn much about his childhood in this, or we haven't yet anyways, but, just the way they turned out and just their personalities are so different, but they still kind of got to the same types of levels of success.
Yeah, definitely.
Point.
All right, moving on. The next chapter is, I'm getting thrown off by there's no chapter numbers, but
I know. I
right?
went back to the beginning. I was like, are there actually chapters? And he just didn't label them.
No.
Like, no, it's just parts.
Yeah.
It's just.
So next chapter, the one thing in life you can control, effort. And I had a highlight on 33. If anyone has anything before.
I just thought it was cool on 32 how he talked about his little story about selling, or about his micro solutions making him $60K that year. Took all of his money and bought a ring for the girl that he was dating, and then lost the ring. And then he said maybe it was a sign because later on they broke up. But yeah, he took all of his all of his savings that he had up to that point, bought the ring, and then she lost it.
Crazy.
And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't imagine that."
On page 33, I highlighted it would have been easy to judge effort by how many hours a day passed while I was at work. That's the worst way to measure effort. Effort is measured by setting goals and getting results. I liked how that was a nice way to put it, because I think some people do correlate putting in the hours comparing how many hours you're putting in versus the results.
That's right. I had to highlight
Yeah, I
that.
like that. But Miguel, did you have anything for that
No,
section?
you guys hit
Good.
all the points that I thought were.
Yeah, there's not many points
Dude,
to go
there's-
around if we're
It's
doubling
similar
up.
to the Elon Musk book in that the chapters are like 3 pages long,
Yeah,
but there's just what, like 115 chapters in his book.
yeah,
There's 115 pages in this book.
yeah.
So multiply
Moving
that.
on to the next chapter: scatterbrained and in college. Being focused at 21 is overrated. This kind of builds off. I mean, this was literally one page.
This was just a message. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
just his message to college kids. The one thing I took away from it was the first response is like someone that would be asking him questions. So this question that he was getting was, before you had the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, how did you maintain focus on the things you needed to do? And his response, the gist of his response was, the thing you need to do is learn. The thing you do need to do is learn. Learn accounting, learn finance, learn statistics, learn as much as you can about business, read biographies about business people. Just don't focus on one thing, but create a base knowledge essentially so that you're ready whenever it's time and you come across what your not destiny necessarily is, but like whatever it is that you're passionate enough about. I mean, because like we've talked about it before, I don't remember which book it was. I think it was Atomic Habits, where we talked about like it's so, once you reach a certain age, you basically just look at yourself as like a completed person. You're not, growing anymore. You're not whatever anymore. You're like, okay, this is what myself is. Okay, yeah, I'm someone who's late. I'm someone who doesn't like to eat well, who doesn't like to exercise, but I'm also someone who likes to get up early and and do this. But like, you can improve and you can learn other things to make yourself, better.
Yeah. Moving on. Next section. What are you destined to be? Question mark.
Okay, so I actually have a point. So I wanted to point this out or pull this out and then ask this to you guys. So it says, do we know what we are destined to be, or do we find out through experience? Are each of us really good at something and it's just a matter of discovering it? Do we all have something that we would love to do every day, and do we inherently know it, or do we have to find it? What you love to do be the same thing as what you are great at? What do you guys think about that?
I think, yeah, I think it makes sense. Well, as far as I agree, I'll say that. You have to find what you're really good at, and in return, what you're really good at could be something that you really love.
So you don't think there's you don't think there's, I'm trying to think, because the way I view this is like there's something that you love to do, like, man, that'd be my dream job. I'm just not good at it, or I'm so good at this, but I'm not good enough to be like, say, I mean, like, what if my dream job was being a professional athlete, and no matter how hard I worked, I just wasn't naturally given the abilities or whatever it is to do it. And the athlete one's a little tougher just because that like does have some legitimate setbacks, like
But now is being a, like, to me, I feel like it's more of a genre, like for specifically the professional athlete, because it's so hard to get there and everything has to work out. But like, would the dream job change? Like, would you settle? Like, let's say you wanted to be a professional athlete, but instead you became a coach for a professional team. Does that mean you're at your job in that case? No?
I think it probably would. I think it
Yeah.
Right? So to me, I feel like I'm going to actually disagree with Miguel on that. How you said, quoting, if you're good at it, you'll love it. I'm going to say the opposite. If you love it and you're passionate about it, even if you're not good at it, you'll have that drive and determination to become good at it and then become successful because of that.
I like that.
Because it's one of those things, like some people who are just like, I'm trying to think of the right way because yeah, it's more of like an open-ended kind of just like
Mhm.
almost like a philosophical type question. Like, do
Yeah.
you think that like, oh, I'm naturally good at with numbers? Like, I'm super good with numbers. I just hate math. Like, I don't want to do math. Oh
Mm.
yeah, this kid's a genius. He just doesn't want to like. But imagine what he would do if he really wanted to like loved math and wanted to do it. But he wants to go play the guitar and he's not even that musically talented, or he wants to go sing and he doesn't have that good of a voice
Mm.
like to like almost to that type of stuff. Like I just pulled it to the side because I was just like kind of what you guys' thoughts were on like is it are each of us really good at something and it's just a matter of discovering it, or and if you do discover it, is it something that you do you feel like you can no matter what it is get to it, or you'll find a way to get to it and get to a certain spot where it becomes what you love to do and can do every day. But
I think people settle for
it's a lot of
something
settling.
that you're good at, even though you don't love it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other side of it. Because then that's the opposite of what he's saying here.
Yeah.
That what you find what you love, and eventually that's what you're great at too. But you're great at something like, I mean, I'm really great at like being a
You know,
pallet
like
mover, being a pallet mover, and just like moving stuff around, being a fast, hard worker, and loading these trucks, and doing stuff like that. But I'm not. I wasn't like it wasn't my dream goal to just like move stuff around on the forklift and do certain type of just mundane jobs.
right. Yeah.
But that was just a little side tangent. But
Mhm.
I had a highlight on 38 on that bold section. I liked how he ended it off. He said, "School isn't the end of the learning process. It's purely a training ground and beginning." I think a lot of people do have that idea that
in
once I'm
reference
done
to
with
like
college,
college, yeah.
yeah, it's like, all right, I'm done. Now I can go get a job, and that's like what I'm gonna do instead of just like constantly learning and learning, and especially being around my fiance, like she has to do so many like education things in the medical field. Is very common to have. It's like called like CEs, continual education,
Mhm.
and you have to get it every single year. You have to hit this many hours of continual education
Wow.
of the upgraded. If there's new laws passed, stuff like that. So I thought it was really interesting. Um,
It's good to keep learning.
yeah. Anything else for this chapter?
That's it for me.
Next section, you only have to be right once. Um,
On that first page, I thought it was cool how he talked a little bit about his first thing about his first business. But he said, in business, to be a success, you only have to be right once. I like to tell the story of how I started my first business at age 12 selling garbage bags. So I thought that was kind of that was the first business idea that he ever had,
mm.
was to sell garbage bags. And also he had this idea to open up this club or this bar
Mhm.
named the Motley's Bar. I was like, hey.
Uh,
But did you see that he got busted for the
Underage
for the
drinking.
girl, yeah, that was on probation for prostitution in the winning the
Yikes.
wet t-shirt contest? I'm like, that is that's unfortunate.
It is funny. There is some parallelism though between Mark and Elon, because Elon also did that thing in college where he hosted a part and host parties.
Mhm.
It is kind of interesting. But
I don't think he, but then even within that, there's still major difference of Mark's drinking
oh,
and
for sure.
Elon's just spectating,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Like they're still just so uniquely different and similar, I guess. But
I had another section on page 43. I like how he ends it off. All that matters in business is that you get it right once, and then everyone can tell you how lucky you are.
very true. This around this time period too, he talks about selling micro solutions. He
You didn't say
officially,
for how much, though, right?
he said I sold it after 7 years and made enough money to take time off and have a whole lot of fun.
But
I don't think he did. Yeah, it never does end up disclosing how much
yeah,
he sold it for.
I bet I'm sure we could look it up.
I'm sure.
Maybe I'll look that up. All right,
Okay.
next section. What I learned from Bobby Knight.
This was a cool little section right here. This is really cool. You may not know a ton about Bobby
No
Knight.
clue.
He's like a legendary college coach.
For
College basketball coach.
Indiana University.
Yeah, so he's a
Okay.
legendary college basketball coach. So I thought it was cool that he went to do an interview with him, and you can tell he's a basketball coach because he's just mad about having to get dressed up to meet Mark Cuban.
Mhm.
Talks about that a little bit, but he said there's one thing that he took truly to heart, and he said it's the best advice that I've been able to give people of any age who ask me for advice, and that was everyone has got the will to win. It's only those with the will to prepare that do win. I was like, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. I mean, it goes back to a lot of the stuff, especially even to call back to the atomic habits. Like you gotta, you gotta set all your boundaries and do stuff like that too. And then once you have all that in place, like one of the things, well, I don't remember which book it was specifically where it was talking about like self control and stuff like that. But I always think about this now just in the context of like if there's something that you're struggling with and you're like, oh man, that person just has great self control, whatever it is, they like the best way. The person with the best self control just keeps them out of that situation.
Oh, Atomic Habits.
It was that Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
It's like the person with the best self control just
avoids
keeps them avoids
Yeah.
that situation in general.
I googled it. Quick Google. So Micro Solutions, Cuban sold Micro Solutions to CompuServe, which is a subsidiary of H&R Block for $6 million. Comes out to around over $14 million today. He made about approximately $2 million after taxes on the deal.
Wow.
So nothing crazy when it comes to accusations, but yeah, $2 million,
Pretty good.
decent.
Yeah.
I mean, he built it up himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not bad.
Moving on, drowning in opportunity, winning the battles you are in.
Talks about the bull market here. Reminded me of the charting books.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was crazy how he said that he talks a little bit just about the complications of like working around certain like this is where he specifically talks about the Mavs for the bulk of this chapter where he's like some of the complications with the viewing rights and the certain things like that and the advertising. But I thought it was crazy how he's like, yeah, you can't just like continue to raise the prices of tickets because you'll get priced out by like other teams and other things like that. But he has 10 games where he offers a certain section for $2 a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that would be ridiculous.
No, the upper bowl.
Yeah, the upper bowl, you get $2 tickets. You can go to 10 games for $20.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
It's a good deal.
Not a lot of teams do that.
But anything else for this section, gentlemen?
I had one just from the second rule, the win the battles that you're in before you take on new ones. It says every one of my businesses has a make or break battle going on, and so does yours. There's one battle in your business that you are not winning or are battling to stand. There is one battle in your business that you are not winning or are battling to stay in front. So he's basically saying like you're either winning a battle or you're battling to stay in front, but you're always fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, is kind of the takeaway from that. But
And that is it, man. It was small, but like we said, short and sweet. So I got a few snippets. Any other thoughts on this section before we kind of wrap it up and transition into our short snippets?
No, not really.
Good, Landon. Sweet.
good.
So speaking of the book club, the last part of the book club, guys, I am going on vacation. So I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. But we will be back, and what we're going to do instead of delaying the book club, we're trying to keep it all within the month. So I will be back at the very end of the month. So we're going to finish up the book, the entire book, from page 54 to the rest of it. And we will come back on the 31st and finish it off. So we'll do just a part 3 on this. Still, I know it's a little bit of challenge for you guys. I mean, it's only going to be about 50 pages, so easy, pace your guys self, and you guys will be okay. We'll all be good.
This come from the guy who just finished the reading last night. So yeah, he'd been cruising.
Yeah, but no, I'm so yeah, excited to finish this book and start off with Miguel's book when we get back. But
First book of season 2 for Miguel.
First book of season 2. Let's see what he's gonna do. You have any thoughts on it?
No, not yet, bro.
Not yet?
Honestly. Couple weeks away, and then just let it marinate.
Marinate.
In my mind.
Yeah.
You got
Sweet.
time. You got time.
Sweet. All right. Moving on to our short snippets. Miguel, back at you. What is our quote of the day?
We're gonna revert back to the book for this one.
Oh, I like it.
Ooh.
I love this so much. We're going back to page 43. The point of all this is that it doesn't matter how many times you fail. It doesn't matter how many times you almost get it right. No one is going to know or care about your failures, and neither should you. all you have to do is learn from them and from those around you, because all that matters in business is that you get it right once. Then everyone can tell you how lucky you are.
There
It's
you
a
go.
great one. I had to go back to
It
that
just,
one.
yeah, man, it just speaks to all the like, everyone thinks you're. I think we've read so many books now, but I think Gary talks about like everyone's gonna think you're an overnight success once
Yep.
you make
Yep.
it, but
Yep.
like, yeah, they don't see the tens to hundreds of times you failed on something and had to tweak something and do it a different way, and then boom, it pops out in the light, and everyone's like, wow, this is a pretty cool idea.
Right.
You just assume like, I mean, you don't realize it's years in the making unless you actually think about it.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, look at this cool new product.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought about it last month, got it all going this month, and boom,
Yeah.
it's all turned around. Now it's probably
Always takes years, sometimes decades. But all right, there was our quote of the day. Landon, what is our thought-provoking question?
Let's keep it in the world of sports since we're reading the sport of business. What is your favorite movie about sports? Doesn't have to be your all-time favorite. Just what's the great movie? Because I don't want you guys to have to feel like you're
I got one. You got one?
Go ahead.
Benchwarmers.
Benchwarmers.
interesting.
I
So
love
you like that?
Benchwarmers.
So you're more the comedy sports type stuff.
Well, I
Did you
honestly
like
haven't-
the?
I haven't watched too many like serious sports movies in reality, but that's the first one that came to mind was Benchwarmers.
Man, bro, there's
That's
so
good.
many.
That's
But
good.
Off top, I'm gonna say Coach Carter.
Oh, dude, that's a great movie. That's a great
What's that
movie,
one
dude.
about?
That one's deep. That one's
Basketball?
that is more of a serious. That's a serious movie. Yeah, it's like that's a good one. I would say my favorite movie is probably The Sandlot.
Sandlot's great.
Sandlot.
Bro.
Sandlot's
Sandlot,
good too.
The Sandlot's really good.
OG.
There's so
Way
many good
back.
ones out there, though. Yeah, there's so many good ones out there.
Alrighty. Here we go. We got 5 options for you guys.
Holy cow.
5 options. Here it is, guys. Am I wrong? Everyone's favorite section.
Well, you said 5 options.
5 options.
What are you doing?
Top
Just
5.
save 2 for
Top
like next
5. No,
month.
I couldn't choose.
All right.
Come on, let's do it.
Am I wrong for am I wrong for setting up a just in case fund for my daughter? Am I wrong for telling my I forget what DIL is.
Daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law. There it is. Am I wrong for telling my daughter-in-law her feelings are not my problem and for F's sakes you don't need to be invited to everything? Am I wrong for not
Probably
making
wrong.
Am I not wrong for making my kids go with my ex-wife's go with my ex-wife and their children for inviting them to join us on Mother's Day? And the last one is, am I wrong for being upset because my wealthy best friend wouldn't let me borrow $5?
That's only 4.
Okay, well, top 4. Wait, you want a 5th one? 5th one. Am I wrong for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my brother-in-law a $50,000 truck?
Holy cow.
That's loaded. There was one in there where the dude had to be wrong.
Yeah.
I
think
forget
know
what
that's
that one was. That was funny.
What was the first one again?
Am I wrong for setting up a just-in-case fund for my daughter? All right. Well, I'll go through them again. Am I wrong? I'll just do I'll do the 5. Am I wrong for telling my daughter-in-law her feelings are not my problem and for F's sakes you don't need to be invited to everything? Am I wrong for not making my kids go Am I wrong for not making my kids go with my ex's wife and their children or inviting them to join us on Mother's Day? Am I wrong for being upset because my wealthy best friend wouldn't let me borrow $5? And am I wrong for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my brother-in-law a $50,000 truck?
I want to go with option 1 because it's like, what is this?
The just-in-case fund?
Yeah. Like what
Option
is
1?
Go for it. Yeah.
Option 1?
Go for it.
Am I wrong for setting up a just-in-case fund for my daughter? My daughter has been married to her husband for 3 years and recently had their first child. The entire time they've been married, she's been a housewife and she stays at home with no plans to return to work. I think that's fine and have been supportive. I also know that she and her husband both have a sizable life insurance policies, and so if God forbid one dies, they'll be okay. However, she also signed a prenup, which again, I think is smart, but according to my daughter, she'd get a very small settlement. And even with child support and a good chance that she'll have to return to work, after being out of the workforce for a bit, who knows if that will be a challenge. My main worry is my niece will fall into this scenario, and even with child support, she'll struggle. So my husband, her father, and I set up a just in case account. If she and her husband divorce, she'll have the money to fall back on just in case. If they remain married past the time my husband and I die, it would just be added into the will she'll inherit. I didn't intend her on telling her about it unless it happened, but my husband pointed out that if she was ever in a situation where she wanted to leave but worried she financially couldn't, it'd be good for her to know that she has a plan B. So we told her, and she was a little surprised. She said that she appreciated it but felt like we were rooting against her. And we loved her husband and hope that they have a long, healthy marriage. We've always been supportive, but this is similar to the prenup, a just in case, a last resort. Well, she told her husband, and he's pissed at us as well, saying that we don't trust him. I said it's looking out for our daughter, and really, it's no different from the prenup. I added that just as he'll always want to protect his daughter, will always want to protect ours. Am I wrong?
Wow, that's not what I was. I thought it was gonna be a little more electric. I'm not gonna lie to you. No, you're not wrong. I mean, it's good to have that. I think regardless of how the spouse is feeling, like there's always that possibility, no matter what. I mean, people have gone through marriage and it's been 50 years and like they get divorced, unfortunately. But no, I don't think they're wrong for giving their child that extra security. I mean, I don't think they should have told them necessarily, but
Would you have told your daughter?
I don't think so.
No.
No, I don't think so. Because then it turns into, oh, like I have this in the back of my pocket. And
Yeah.
act crazy and do whatever I want now because it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's the only gripe I have with that.
Landon?
Just don't tell the kids.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's always going to be in a hell. It sounds like this is coming from like a loving family for her daughter. Whenever your family is that involved with their parents, like all of us have pretty good relationships with our parents, then they're always going to have that like I remember whenever I was like just like dating girls, and my mom would be like, "Hey, is like this gonna be the right one for you?" Just because they genuinely want you to be happy. So I think that's what this sounds like. It's coming from a place of where it's just like, okay, we have a legitimate rooting interest for you. It's not if they. I mean, their words were like they like the husband too. It's nothing like that. It's more of like, hey, you're not working for yourself and you're not in a position to provide for yourself if everything hit the fan, which happens at least a million times a day across the United States. Probably someone's getting divorced. Someone's deciding to get divorced because of some big blow up and stuff like that. So I get it from that perspective, but I don't know that you would want to let you. I mean, you can't tell your daughter and expect her not to tell her husband because like that's not the. Then you're creating like divide because you would expect your wife to kind of tell you
Right.
everything
And
that's
then
going.
Yeah, I can
It's
imagine that.
like that's the only
Like if
problem
years
with
went
that.
by down the line and then she told you, you'd be like, you knew about this?
Yeah, I think that's the one spot where they made a mistake where it's just like, hey, the same way you said because it makes sense the way they explain it though, where it's just like, hey, the same way you got the prenup, which not everyone signs, like literally not everyone signs that because that is saying like if things go sideways, you get yours and I get mine. That's because if she's not working, like I said, she's not building up any money for herself. Like if he wanted to really divorce her and that's the decision he wanted to make, then he would have to part with half of his stuff or to some extent like that. The fact that they chose to go ahead and do it that way, and she's a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home wife, I guess. I don't know.
I think it was mom. I think you're right.
Is it mom?
Yeah.
Then like yeah, I mean that totally makes sense from both ways. But like you pointed out, I think the only issue was like telling one and not both of them, or just not telling them at all. Like I think the concept is obviously coming from a good place. I mean, it has to be. Who just wants to give away money if you don't love someone? Like that's it. So I mean, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
In your scenario, if this was you, would you tell your daughter? Miguel said yes. No, Miguel said no.
I'm not telling her. No.
I think it really does hinge on if you like this husband.
Yeah.
Like if you think the relationship is sturdy, it's like, hey guys, I just want to let you know, like, don't want there to be because I get their vantage point of, and I think you probably would too, where it's like I don't want my daughter to feel like she has to like say this guy starts abusing him, he starts abusing her, or he starts being verbally abusive or mean or any type of anything, and that feeling of like okay, well, we've created this life where you need me to be at home now. It's almost like I don't feel like I can go back to work, but I also don't feel like I can leave and go be able to support myself on my own. So I think I probably would just for that reason because they already thought about that.
Mm.
If I wouldn't have thought about that, and I would have just been like, this is why I'm not gonna tell you, and then all of a sudden I thought about it like that. But since they kind of openly were viewing it that way, I think that's why they told her ultimately. But I think just telling her is just gonna obviously create divide in either a marriage or and whenever you're doing it for good intentions too. I think that's the sad thing with all this. Like we had the one story where it was like, gosh, I can't remember the exact details of it now, but like there was one story where it was like, oh, okay, like ex or stepdaughters, stepkids, and stuff like that, and there was like legitimate negative kind of
Oh yeah, he wouldn't pay for her tuition or
yeah,
something.
like
Yeah.
legitimate negative stuff there. But this just seems more of just like a oversight, and in the same way that oversights can happen and cause big blowups, it's the same way that something can happen in a marriage and can cause a big blow up. And that's why I think both were just kind of they were just looking out for her. But I think that yeah, the whole telling one is the only non-option. You either tell them both or don't tell them at all, and just kind of let it play out.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
what about you?
I'll answer and then I have a follow up for you guys too.
Um,
Last follow up, it'll be quick. But I wouldn't tell him. I wouldn't tell my daughter. But based on your scenario, like if it was rough, hopefully she would at least tell me that's going on so then I could tell her,
mhm.
Yeah.
you know? But I like the idea of like, hey, we're going to do it. We'll just save this little nut. And then if we die, it just goes into the will anyways. Like she won't even have to know.
Yeah.
But if worst case worse, like she could tell us and then we go, hey, we do have this. Like this is what, you know? Yeah,
Because
you
under
never know.
that scenario, if it just goes into the will, like you cannot. Well, first off, whoever passed away has passed away, so you don't have anyone to be mad about, and no one. I can't think of anyone who would be mad about just getting money.
Yeah.
It'll either ease your burdens, or you guys are totally financially stable. You're in a great relationship where you don't need the money, and just like donate it or
Right.
give it to someone who does, or save it up and do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like all this money is gonna do. Oh, that was what their plan was. It's gonna go to the exact same type of cause.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Flip side happens to you. You're the fiance or the husband. Are you slighted? You feel a little hate? Do you have it into you to be like, okay, I understand? Or do you actually feel like that's a justifiable reaction from the husband?
My initial, just to go first, my initial thought, like immediately, is just like, you're going to feel a little bit slighted because you're the one providing for everything. And they're just like, because you can see where it would not look like an out.
I'd
but
feel
like,
slighted.
Yeah, you feel slighted because, I mean, if you have a good, functioning, just like healthy relationship,
Right.
because I think,
Which I think all three of us do.
yeah,
So it's
I
like,
just,
can you
but
imagine?
but yeah, so I think that's where, but I think that's where you have to look at it. If you're going to be an objective person in the conversation, it comes down to like, okay, why did you feel the need to sign the prenup? Because not everyone does it. I don't know if you have
Say no prenup.
say so no prenup. I actually think it's a little bit different.
Okay.
I think it's just a little bit different because unless it was her, I can't imagine that the person not working is pushing for a prenup. What do you have to gain from that?
Yeah, it didn't say exactly who
exactly,
enforced it.
But if we're gonna put it out there and just try and look at it,
Right.
why would you ask for a prenup? Say I want to make sure I'm taking all of my nothing.
Right.
That
Fair.
doesn't make sense. So it has to be like, hey, just in case we're just gonna do this. If people do it all the time, you can phrase it however you want, but it's out there. So I think no prenup changes it a little bit. But I think the fact that if you are providing for the house, you're obviously gonna feel a little bit slighted. But then you have to listen to the whole because some of this idea came from the prenup, like in the parents. Whenever they were crafting why they were doing this. Not only was she staying at home, but
Interesting.
they're just like,
So you think
she's not
no
gonna get,
prenup,
she's
they
not gonna,
wouldn't be doing this?
maybe not,
Hmm.
because then
I
you
think
get
they
to
would be
leave.
regardless.
Then you get to, I mean, maybe they would, but then you get to at least leave with something. You're not just literally pot committed.
Right.
But if it is a prenup, then I think that has to do a little bit. But you're gonna feel slighted, but then you have to like, if you're reasonable, you're gonna have to listen.
Mm.
And then that's where you really find out what the relationship was between because I don't know how you guys are, but I'm not actively trying to create tension with or not step with
In-laws.
the in-laws.
Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
really care about your wife or whatever, whoever you're with, then you're gonna be like, that's just gonna cause divide between you guys. The more they don't like me, I've always thought about that. The more they don't like me, the more you guys are gonna have to talk about that.
Yeah.
So it's like really, even if we would always make it a point to like, even if things were rocky or like we were, in arguments and stuff like that, you never show that around like your in-laws
Mm.
because then it's going to be, well, what's going on here? Which is
Yeah.
like, it's not necessarily your business because it doesn't have anything to do with you. The only thing it has to do with you is that I'm your son or something along those
Yeah.
lines, but you're not involved in this thing. So,
That's tough. That's wishy-washy when there's
so
drama.
yeah, that's kind of been one of our things. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I definitely agree. I definitely think I would feel like it'd be like, dang, like that's really how you guys feel. But on the other hand, again, like looking at it from a wider lens, it's like, okay, like I understand there's possibilities. There's always that possibility. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if it were to happen where we got divorced or whatever, then she would be okay and I'm still going to be okay. So looking at it in that sense, it's like, yeah, it would suck initially hearing that, like, oh, we have an emergency fund for our child because we don't know if you guys are going to stay together. But at the end of the day, it's like you got to protect your,
Right.
yeah. So
There you go.
It would be tough not to look at it that way. What about you?
Yeah.
You got any final?
Yeah, no, I'd feel slighted too for sure. I mean, how could you not like, like almost like I could see that like for a few years, like if you guys got in an argument, like that's like one of the first things that come to your mind. You're like, she's got that fun.
It is one of those
Like-
things, man. It's like once it's planted, it's
Right.
always
Right. That's yeah.
it's tough to outrun that.
Right.
That's where I was. That's where I was just like, hey, have that real mature conversation about it with both of them, or just don't do it at all.
Yeah.
Because that might be the toughest. Am I wrong yet? Where it's like yes and no.
yeah,
You're not wrong for the action. You're wrong from maybe the way that you did it by just trying to put it
execution.
in one ear
Right.
and not in both.
It's tough though. Yeah.
That's- But it's tough to say anyone's wrong for trying to give money to their family. That's where I was like, anyone who has a decent relationship with their family is always like, they're always going to have their parents. Like, if it's not checking in, it's always going to be like, it, I think this, and you will be able to speak to this better, at least in years from now, where it's just like, because I can just envision myself as a parent, like, once you're a parent, I feel like your eyes would just turn red to anything that someone does to upset your daughter or your son or something like that, where it's just like, yeah, you don't realize it. Like, hey, if you were the husband or the boyfriend or the whatever, and you're saying something like that, you're just being like, okay, well, we're just in an argument. But if you're the parent, you're just gonna be like, you don't let him talk to you like that.
yeah.
You don't let her treat you like that. You are not gonna do that. But for them, it's just like, hey, you've never gotten in an argument with mom. And it's like, oh no, we argue all the time, but I don't, because I think about that sometimes too. Like whenever I've been in arguments with Sam, where it's like, oh, like I would be really frustrated at my dad if he was saying or doing some certain things, and like kind of vice versa and stuff like that. And that's like, I think that's just a kind of operating at a different level of thinking when it just comes to life. If you're really going to be observing kind of what's going on, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
There you go.
Yeah, man. It's a lot.
Come for the book, stay for the am I wrong.
Yeah. All right, guys. That is going to wrap up this part 2 of How to Win at the Sport of Business by Mark Cuban. And we will be finishing up in just about 2 weeks, guys. And then we'll be debuting Miguel's book for the month of June. So stay tuned, guys. All right. Take care. Have a good one.